So, welcome back. My name's Damien, and I've been doing this month's Monday nights, and this is the last one. So, the topic that I've been working through is captured under the handy little slogan called Closing the Gap. And what closing the gap in this context has the way I've been talking about it is in regard to my own daily experience and daily actions, my daily thinking, my attitudes to others, my prejudices, my behaviour, my motivations, the reality of my experience. So that's me. And then there's my aspirational ethic, my goal, what I think is worthy. So, in my case, that's sort of a Buddhist ethic, a Buddhist vision of the world, or a Buddhist vision of the individual, the example of the Buddha. But for all of us, there will be something, whether it's a Christian ideal, an Islamic ideal, Jewish ideal, a secular ethics ideal, a humanist ideal, or even your own invention. All of these things are possible. So we have some ethic, some aspiration, some even a thing that we might use as an affirmation about ourselves. And so the last few weeks been talking about examining my own daily experience in relation to that aspirational goal. And so we can see that, or I can see that there is a gap, a bit of a contradiction between what I profess to believe in and what I if somebody said, what's the meaning of life? I will say, well, it's not harming others, and it's benefiting others, and if you can't benefit them, then don't harm them. That as an aspiration. But the reality then of my own experience is that I have anger, I have jealousy, I have competitiveness and miserliness, aggression, superiority, arrogance, pride. I have all of these things. Desire, lustful desire, acquisitiveness, deceit, everything. We can go through the whole list of what my daily experience actually is. So there's this bit of a mismatch. And so the last few weeks we've been talking about how, it is actually the anger and the desire that we have which is making this gap. That we are making this gap because both the aspirational model, this aspiration, the idea of being more Buddha-like, or the idea of being more Christ-like, or the idea of being, a pure behaving person. The reason for that is because it is a source of happiness. The reason to be a better person is because we view it as being a source of happiness. And so the last few weeks I've been trying to demonstrate that the reason that I become jealous, or the reason that I become angry, the reason that I am lustful and desirous, acquisitive, miserly, proud, competitive, arrogant, resentful, the reason that I am all of those different things is because similarly I want to be happy and I want to be free from suffering. And by some sort of perversion in my mind, I think that pushing somebody away, humiliating them, hurting them, and telling them to get out, I have that belief that this will make me happy. So I've been arguing the case that the reason we get angry is because we have some sort of belief that will make me happy. And that the reason that I'm lustful and desirous and miserly and acquisitive is because I have the belief that will make me happy. And so I guess one of my main assertions here is that those beliefs in regard to anger and desire are based on the dominance of our experience, that we have the perception that our experience is dominated by my sensory interaction with the world, by what I taste, touch, see, hear and smell. And because of that, I have this sort of reliance that if I can control the outside world in according to my senses, what I like and what I don't like, if I can do that, then I will be happy. And so I see anger as a way to push away what I dislike, and I see desire as something that will pull towards me what I like. So independence on this sensory experiential experience of the world through my senses, I then have come to believe that the desire and anger are the reasonable ways to try to have happiness and to be free from suffering. And so I adopt and abandon in accordance with this sensory judgment. And so from that basis, I then use anger and desire as my anger and attachment, anger and acquisition. I use these as the methods that I'm hoping will make me happy. And so I've then, we can probably be forgiven for thinking that our happiness is entirely dependent on the sensory adopting and abandoning in accordance with what our senses are determining in the world. So in terms of taste, this tastes nice, that tastes bad. I will keep only having the nice and I will shun the bad. Therefore, I will have happiness and I will be free from suffering. Based on the sensory discrimination. So, what we have to do then is check if that is reasonable or not reasonable. And so there's no shortage of examples to show us that is not particularly reasonable. That it's not unknown that the super wealthy and the super famous, the super praised, the super talented, the super beautiful, the super liked, even the super liked that everybody likes. It's not unreasonable to find that person is very dissatisfied and unhappy. It's not unknown. It's not unknown that such a person is unhappy, dissatisfied. And so there's this, as I was mentioning last week, the Four Noble Truths that the first teaching the Buddha gave. The first truth is that to understand how everything in the world is contaminated or is the truth of dissatisfaction. And so, in particular, like the sensory world, to see that whether it's the object that we clutch at and acquire or the object that we push away and dislike, that in both cases the outcome is dissatisfactory. And so to demonstrate that the actual experience of anger itself, that just from independent of what it might do to others. So I'm not talking about the harm that it does to others, but just my own experience itself, that the anger is unsatisfactory. The experience in yourself of anger is a disturbing, unsatisfactory experience. And then also last week talking about desire. So desire is more tricky for us because desire to us seems to be really worthwhile because it brings us, it appears to bring us closer to other people. It brings us, actually brings people together, whereas anger naturally pushes people apart. But desire brings people together, and so there's sort of, maybe there's a bit of an advantage about, there's some benefit from desire in that it does bring people together. But if you examine it, you'll see that the mind of desire itself, if the mind keeps engaging in desire, then there is never any satisfaction, because desire is always grasping at something else. So the millionaire with $990 million who wants to be a billionaire becomes incredibly dissatisfied because he's not quite there. And so even though he has acquired $990 million, it actually is producing no happiness for him in his experience, because the mind of desire always wants something extra. So to understand that, the fault of the desire and the anger. So we're working towards this aspirational model, our goal, our aspiration. And let's say that we actually close the gap, in terms of our reactions to others, and that so our mind only ever abides in love and compassion. And our mind, we never get angry, we never get jealous, we're never competitive. And so let's imagine that we have come to a point where I am matching my aspirational model in terms of love and compassion for others, in terms of never having anger, never having jealousy. So the question then is my journey complete if I have done that? Is that enough? So I think there was a question here last week which sort of entered into this territory, and what we then have to consider is the experiences that, let's say, appear to me, or the circumstances that I encounter, and both my internal experiences and the external experiences. Even if I am loving and compassionate, even if I am kind, even if I do not have anger, I don't have jealousy, even in that circumstance, we then have this situation where why is it that good things happen to bad people and bad things happen to good people? Like, sometimes people have this quandary. Why is it that this person here who seems so evil-natured and destructive and all that is happy and has no disasters in their life, is never caught, is never prosecuted, is never criticised or whatever it is? And then on the other hand, some saintly person has this incredible row of bad luck, sickness, maybe criticism, maybe even imprisonment or accusations, all sorts of different unfavourable circumstance. So we then enter the whole world of cause and effect, and action and its results. So maybe if we just go into some basic explanation that if I engage in some, let's say it's a fairly powerful action, such as killing an animal or something like this, and I have done that out of some real motivation to harm. I've done it out of a motivation to harm. I've then carried out the action. I have felt some sense of completion of that action, and then so the animal has died. So there's four clear factors here, and when those four factors are put together, the action is called a complete action. It's sort of like a particularly powerful action. And similarly, if I have a motivation to benefit others, and then I engage in something very beneficial for others, let's say serving somebody a meal, but done with some pure intent to benefit them, and then the person has the meal and they get that sustenance, and I am content in the completion of that action. So again, you can see that there's four factors involved. So here we're talking about actions like maybe a particular form of like a strong action. Okay, these are both called complete actions. And in the Buddhist presentation, the result. So the action is created, and one way I like to look at it is that it's like the action has two parts. It has this part right now, which we can call the causal part. And then at some time in the future, it has its other half, and that other half is called the resultant half. So we have a causal part and a resultant part. And that those two parts are sort of connected. They're connected. Okay? So this is action. I'm not using the word karma, I'm using the word action, just for various, it's good to use the word action. Maybe it's a bit clearer what the meaning is. So we create an action, like a fairly powerful action. So we can think that there's a causal part, and then at some point in the future, there's a resultant part. So the question is, when I'm talking like this, the question that we all have to answer is, if I want to achieve something in my life, let's say like becoming a really much better person, or to become super rich, or to become super famous, or to become a great violinist, or a great baseball player, or a footballer, does that have a cause? So there's three possibilities. It's totally random. It's just random. To become a billionaire is just a random sort of occurrence. It has a cause, and that cause is similar to the result, right? Or it has a cause, and that cause is the antithesis of the result. Or it has no cause, which is a bit similar to being random, that things just happen. So if we subscribe to the totally random or no cause, then you can see that there would be no path to enlightenment. There would be no cause for this human life. There would be no cause for my wealth. There would be no cause for my intelligence or my attributes. There would be no ability to change my mind to be more kind and affectionate. There would be no reason why anger arose in me so strongly that I might kill somebody. There would be no reason that compassion would arise in me so strongly that I would give up my life for somebody. These things would be just random. So it's worthwhile doing this analysis, and there's good reasons to do this analysis. We've got the three possibilities, random or no cause, or a cause that is similar to the result, or a cause that is the antithesis of the result. And we should try to examine that. So when we see a robber has robbed millions and millions of dollars, maybe a con artist or something, over many, many, many years, and then gets off scot-free, we think how unjust that is. Because we think, well, cause and effect is not true, because here's an example of a person who has done all these evil things, but there is no consequence for that person, no retribution, no justice. Okay, and so we might then suspect that there is no cause and effect. So this is something to examine. And similarly, there might be somebody that you see who puts in every effort to be a kind, generous person, but has nothing but a sequence of bad luck and misfortune. So, within our own experience, we have to sort of come to a point where no cause, random, a cause which is similar to the result, or a cause which is the opposite of the result. So in the case of somebody who seems to have spent a lifetime in crime, that they then never have any consequence, or it appears as though they never have any consequence. And so it would appear to us, so we may not maintain our faith in cause and effect. Okay, so this, I can tell by your faces this is a bit boring, but to me this is actually quite important, because if I can totally rely on cause and effect, and then I can see that in my behaviour I need to eliminate the actions that are generated through, let's say, through anger and hatred and desire and jealousy. I need to eliminate those actions, and I need to have confidence that in doing that at some point in the future, the consequence for me by doing that will be beneficial. And I need to increase my actions that are motivated through love and affection and compassion and kindness and care, generosity and patience. I need to increase those actions, and I need to have confidence within myself that the result of that will be beneficial for me in the long run. Because in the meantime, between when I'm doing all these good actions and when I'm waiting on the consequences of those good actions, in that meantime, I have a vast treasure house of past actions that will ripen, and the results of those past actions in the days when I was motivated by anger and desire and jealousy and competitiveness, the actions that I've created in the past that have been motivated out of wanting to harm others, wanting to humiliate others, or wanting to hurt others, wanting to steal, wanting to lie, wanting to cheat, all of those past actions which I created, in the meantime, they will ripen. In the meantime, they will ripen. So even now, if I make the absolute determination and I completely close the gap on my current behaviour, I unfortunately have a whole storehouse of actions created under the old me under the angry, jealous, desirous, hateful, thief, robber, killer, rapist me from the past. And so the consequences of those actions will ripen. And so the importance of having complete trust in cause and effect from now, creating good actions, not engaging in harmfulness, not engaging in anger and jealousy, and not creating actions out of anger and jealousy, then there will be a long period before these actions all start to ripen and produce a result. And all the old actions are still going to happen to me. So let's take an example. Let's say out of jealousy, there's a person and I'm really jealous about them. So I start spreading a few stories. You know, they did this, they did that. You know, I tell all their friends and my friends, he did this, he did that, she did this, she did that. You know, whether it's true or made up, I start telling these things, and then I see those people have become distant to this person, and maybe they're even criticising them. Or they're then spreading those rumours to others, and I get a sense of delight at that manipulation. And I see it. I see, oh, that's the fruit of my lies. You know, the Cambridge Analytica, that there is the fruit of my lies. And I take delight in that. So that becomes a complete action. So if I've done that in the past, then today I might sort of suddenly experience, I'm a good person, but there's people circulating these stories about me. They're false. And there's people thinking that I'm this or that, but I'm not this or that. But the stories persist. And sometimes even the stories get into the newspaper, or they get into the courts or something, and then I might even suffer a great loss from something which is totally untrue. But to understand that this type of thing is actually cause and effect in operation. You know, so this is an example. So let's say in this example of, you know, being jealous of somebody. So jealousy is my motivation. And so I fabricate stories, I belittle them behind their backs, I criticise, I make up lies, I sort of create this whole scenario with the intention of damaging them. And then I see that falsity spreading, and I take delight in that. And I feel that my actions are complete. So if I've done that in the past, then now, in this circumstance, all of a sudden I hear that somebody is making up lies about me, spreading lies, spreading rumours, and people are looking at me in a different light. You know, my reputation is damaged, and you think that there's no cause. Okay? So having faith or having an understanding of the law of cause and effect, the lesson that we apply is, this is happening to me, I must have created the cause. So the full embracing of the law of cause and effect, or the belief in action and its result, the full belief in that is that everything that happens to you, you have an acceptance that I have created the cause for this. This isn't just to do with some people spreading rumours. This is to do with me having created the cause for this circumstance to arise. Okay? And so that thought, there's no question that thought is an absolute challenge to our view of the world. a complete challenge to our view of the world. But similarly, if it happened to have been one of you that won the $37 million or the $110 million the other day, that also is the result of some previous cause. And I can quite comfortably say there is no evidence in my life that I have ever created the cause to win $37 million. You know, I am absolutely certain about that I have not created that cause. But the young family in Werribee or Geelong or Shepparton or whoever won that $110 million, it happened due to a cause. And two causes in particular. One, the cause to win, and secondly, the cause to buy a ticket. Both are needed. But if you don't have the cause to win $37 million, you will not win $37 million. It's as clear as that. So the example of the Buddha is worth understanding. So anyway, before I talk about that, so what do we do? In the way that there are four factors to understand in the way that we have created cause. So the cause, we've done a complete action, and the analogy, a useful analogy, is that we can view that as like setting down a seed. Now, this is only an analogy and it's not to be examined too closely, but let's imagine then that we actually have this whole storehouse of previously created seeds, karmic seeds. And when those seeds meet the correct conditions, the correct ripening conditions, they then ripen. So somebody bought a ticket. Whatever else in their life was the ripening conditions. I believe one of the stories, the husband had a sort of quite a clear intention about what he was going to do with all the money. That could have been part of the ripening condition, and so he won. So when the seed meets the ripening conditions, then the result ripens. So I might win a box of chocolates at work, he wins $37 million. In both cases it's the ripening of a seed, but maybe there's some difference between the seed that I ripened, you know, winning a plastic mug with the company logo on it, lucky me, or $37 million. But in either case, it's the ripening of a seed. When it meets the right conditions, the seed ripens. So, the results of an action. There's three results. So, the main result, you know, which is a sort of like a very powerful result, and then when we become a human again, when we're in a human life, there's two results. There's the result that is similar to the cause in terms of experience, and there is the result that is similar to the cause in terms of habituation. So I would suggest that the person that wins that amount of money, most likely that the seed that caused that is an action of great generosity in the past. So at some point in the past, he has engaged in an action of great generosity. It's created a seed for wealth. And then the circumstances to have great wealth suddenly arise have ripened for him, and so then he has great wealth. And often, but not always, you find that sometimes the people that do acquire great wealth are it is coupled with a great sense of generosity. Now, not always, but I would think that amongst the great American wealthy, you know, there's no question that if we look at Bill Gates, Warren Buffett, Jeff Bezos' ex-wife, maybe not Jeff Bezos, but his ex-wife, you know, Warren Buffett, I think, recently just gave $20 billion. Jeff Bezos' ex-wife, I think, just gave $37 billion into the Bill and Melinda Gates Fund. Melinda Gates, I think, was the instigator of the Bill and Melinda Gates Charity Fund. So there is, to me, is an example of karma. She didn't have to create the wealth herself, but she managed to have the karma, the ripening conditions, to marry the world's richest man and then to be able to control his money. So that's an example of the ripening of a karma that she was, one, had the fortune to have great karma, and two, had the fortune to be able to convince that wealth to be used to do great good. And so I would think, in my view, and I could be wrong, but my view, that's an example of this karma that is similar to the cause in terms of the experience. She has the experience of great wealth, the acquisition of great wealth, and then she has the habituation of the cause, which is generosity, and so she automatically engages in generosity as well. So, and then the third result is environment, and there's an environmental result. And this is a more subtle type of result. And so in terms of generosity, if the community as a whole is, you know, on the whole, a generous, you know, they have the habituation towards generosity, then the environment will be one where crops grow well, there's good rainfall, there's good soil, there's nothing lacking. You know, this is called the environmental result. So we have an environment where there's the wealth, like wealth in nature. Maybe blue skies, nice, beautiful environment. These are all sort of like the consequence of not harming others is to be surrounded by peaceful animals, no harm in the environment, no great disasters, you know, like geological disasters, volcanic or whatever, that we're in a peaceful environment. So it's a very interesting area that is worthy of study so that you can acquire or develop a faith in karma. So we're closing the gap. So we may have closed the gap in terms of being kind, being full of love and compassion, being peaceful, non-harmful, but still we can have a lot of difficult, maybe even bad circumstances arise for us. We are still going to die. We might still die through violence or sickness or, you know, whatever, even old age. These are all sort of unpleasant experiences. So we still have karmas, actions resulting in difficult circumstances for us, even if we are kind, even if we are patient, even if we are, you know, non-harmful towards others. It can still be our experience. And that's why it can be a challenge to actually fully accept cause and effect unless we start to really understand the way that we have this whole collection of both positive and negative past actions. And so our experience will be a mixture of these two. So the example of the Buddha is worth mentioning, that, you know, the Buddha's life, from this tradition's point of view, the Buddha's life is like a demonstration of the whole path of becoming a Buddha, the whole life of the Buddha. The life of the Buddha is like a demonstration of what we all have to do. So the Buddha, had a family, left his family, went and meditated for many years, tried to learn as much as he could, travelled around the northern part of India quite extensively, learning, meditating, and then he came to a point where he sat and he meditated, and the way it's told is that he sort of realised the truth. But in that night, the night of his meditation, so as he's meditating, his mind, so whether his mind generates all these disturbances or whether they are like some sort of external disturbances that come and taunt him and tempt him, so he has these visions of voluptuous dancing girls, and then he has visions of hordes of angry demons attacking him, and there's all sorts of these disturbances coming into his mind, but he remains undisturbed by both the attractive and the unattractive, not having any desire and not having any anger. And so these, whether they're illusory beings or whatever, they're taunting him, saying, how can he sit there unresponsive to their threats or to their harm or to their seduction? And so the Buddha says, he's meditating, and then he takes his right hand out and he does this. You'll see in the statue, he does this mudra or hand movement where he touches the earth, and he says, as the earth is my witness, there is nothing that I have not addressed. There is no negativity that I have not overcome. There is no previous action that I have not purified. There is no negative habituation that I have not conquered. There is no, that the earth is his witness that over a long period of time he has completely eliminated all of the karmic seeds and even the stains of the habituations. That there is no habitual inclination to harm or to desire, to anger, to jealousy, that all of that habituation, mental habituation, has been completely eliminated. And so, I think I can see within myself absolutely the habituation to harm or the habituation to anger, the habituation to desire, the habituation to miserliness or jealousy, competitiveness, is still really present and really active. That mental habituation is absolutely there. And so the Buddha's example is sort of showing that it is possible that not just we can close this gap in terms of developing love and compassion and kindness, but we can also close the gap in eventually eliminating even the subtlest habituation to harm, to wanting to harm others, or wanting desire, lustful desire, or competitiveness or jealousy. That habitual inclination towards jealousy or competitiveness can also be eliminated. And, we can see that is something, really quite remarkable. So, and then, closing that gap as well. So let's do a little bit of meditation. So just adopt a comfortable position. And focus. So we'll focus on the breath. So become aware of your mind at first, and let all of the thoughts go from your mind. And turn your attention, just become aware of the breathing in and out, just the breath coming in, going out. And hold your concentration complete 100% on the breath. So just relax your mind a little bit. And as in previous weeks, we'll do a quick analytical meditation. So what I ask you to do in this meditation is to examine what you think or where you stand on the relationship between cause and effect. So just as I presented three possibilities, and so think of your experience of the world and where you stand on accepting or rejecting, explaining the world or being unable to explain the world in terms of this cause and effect. So just spend a few minutes just clarifying what you actually think about this at this point in time. So just examine what you actually think or believe about this relationship between cause and effect. Whether there is one, whether randomness, chance, cause and effect, or cause the opposite, a perverse relationship. Just examine that for a minute or two. And bring your attention back to the room. So we've got a little bit of time for some questions or some whatever, comment. Yeah. So the question is about how would I define peace of mind?
What is it when you can say, I have peace of mind, or how can I get it?
So if I find peace of mind, what does it feel like? Is that what you mean?
No, what it feels. Oh, I thought it feels like.
What would you hope that it feels like? No, but I'm asking you, what would you hope that it feels like?
No worry, no concern,
No anger?
no anger,
No jealousy?
all those things.
Well, that sounds like a fairly reasonable definition of peace of mind.
Which means that you accept things as they are.
So the question is whether peace of mind means accepting things as they are. In terms of your mind, absolutely not. In terms of your mind, not to accept your mind as the way it is now. You know, you can accept the outside world and you can accept other people as they are. Absolutely. That is a path to contentment and peace of mind if you accept other people as they are. In terms of yourself, do not accept yourself as you are. Make a change. If you see anger in your mind, try to eliminate it. If you see jealousy or competitiveness in your mind, try to remove it, try to eliminate it. Apply the antidote. If you see, like we've been addressing in the last few weeks, that, and yesterday as well, you know, anger. If you see anger in your mind, oppose it with patience, oppose it with love and affection. You know, there is no benefit particularly in being content with your mind as it is. You know, the whole point of this whole thing is to see that there is a gap between where you are now and your aspirational. Let's say your aspiration is to have peace of mind. Then identify what it is that prevents peaceful mind. What is it that prevents a peaceful mind? And so the last few weeks I've trying to demonstrate that anger is an enemy of a peaceful mind. That desire also is an enemy of a peaceful mind. Jealousy is an enemy of a peaceful mind. So there's a presentation about what is the essence of Buddhism, and the fourth point of that, the assertion about Buddhism, is that nirvana, a state which is completely free of all problems and has all accomplishments, that nirvana is peace. So, and there's a lot of understanding to go into what that means, but basically that in the end, the full accomplishment of the Buddha is peace, mental peace. You know. Yeah.
So what you're talking about, before I start, cause and effect. So we know in the brain that what binds together wires together. So what you're talking about is breaking that, like neuronal pathway, was then sort of letting go of these two elements. But then I think you're saying, oh, this is the effect of it. So you're trying to do that. Because in between, that gap you're talking about is
yeah, so the question or the observation is relating this to activity in the brain between neural pathways and establishing pathways and then changing them and all that. Look, I haven't particularly been using a brain system for the basis of what I've been talking. And the interrelationship between the brain and all of these workings of our mind and that are maybe not fully demonstrated. You know, I think I'm a scientist. My training is scientific, but I think when we talk about love and compassion and anger and all that, absolutely now they're starting to establish, and they can see when they stick people in MRIs or whatever, they can see the brain working in different ways. But I'm not a big fan of thinking that the brain is, is the causative part of this. I think more likely the brain is the resultant part of our mind activity. Sorry? Yeah, so the Buddha, and that's absolutely right. So this is the relationship between, in terms of karma, if I engender a lot of anger at this moment, then in the future, the habituation that will arise for me so easily will be anger. And the circumstances that I encounter in life will be the circumstances, the experiences that I have caused others. So like the mind of anger often causes harm to others, it causes discomfort to others, it causes aggression in our relationship to others, conflict. And so the consequence of anger in the past is that now I will experience conflict, aggression, abuse, insults, because in the past that's what I have done to others. Now, the relationship between that and the brain neural pathways and that, I think at the moment that sort of correlation is not available to us from science, Because from the Buddhist point of view, this spans not just this lifetime, but infinite past lifetimes. And our brain does not, unfortunately, carry over from one lifetime to the next. But our the mind habituations do carry over. And so possibly those mental habituations then in our development in the fetus and through childhood and through adulthood, those habituations actually form our brain neural pathways. So that's why I say the brain, not from the causative point of view, but from the resultant point of view, is possible. Because maybe our mental habituations actually form the brain into my brain due to my karma. Anyway, that's just a theory from me at the moment, but it's, I think that's why this whole study of the mind and the brain and all that is so interesting, because, but I think realistically at the moment, science is a long way distant to what Buddhism is asserting. Okay, I don't want to keep people to start getting toey about the time. So, karma or action as result. Geshe Doga encouraged me to use the word action, not the word karma, because unfortunately karma has become loaded with certain meanings which are maybe a little bit distant to actually what cause and effect really means. But, so if we think in terms of action, when I do an action, there will be a consequence. And that consequence is determined by the action. And when we think about it, that is absolutely a reassuring thought, because if that wasn't the case, we would be totally lost. If there was no relationship between the actions that I do and the consequence, then there would be nothing. So it's something to understand that everything resides on the relationship between cause and effect, including the Buddha. So I want to thank you very much, everybody, for the last 5 weeks, 5 Mondays. From my side, I think I've, under this closing the gap or understanding the gap, I think for me it's been quite beneficial to go through this myself. So thank you very much, and everybody that's contributed in questions or observations, very good. Let's just dedicate the benefit, so the whole lot, five Mondays, we're coming together, and imagine that it's something very rare and precious, and it takes the form of a ball of white light in the centre of the room, and then bring it above your head and let it dissolve down into you, completely filling your body with light and clearing and filling your mind with peace and calm, clarity, wisdom, completely free of all negativity. So your mind becomes completely clear of all negativity. And imagine all of that positive energy collects at your heart in the form of an egg, a white light egg. Then rays of light go out from that egg to everybody else here in the room. And you give this benefit to everybody else, so their bodies become completely clear of any difficulty or sickness, illness, disturbance, and their minds become completely clear, free from all negativity, and abiding in a great joy and happiness. So imagine that you're actually giving this to the other people here in the room. To your families, those close to you, even to your enemies and the people that annoy you, that every living being actually wants happiness and wants to be free from suffering. So you give them happiness and you give them freedom from suffering. So like this, imagine every living being like a vast ocean of living beings, all turned towards you, facing you, and you send out these rays of light to every living being to bring them happiness, both physical happiness and mental happiness. And then all that light that's gone out comes back and dissolves back into you. And just have a great sense of delight or joy at being able to have visualised this. So next month, Jeremy will be leading the Monday nights. So Jeremy's a very accomplished and very warm and friendly teacher. So I think you should enjoy that. So hopefully keep coming. And